Are you the quantum mechanics?
Yes, we are the Quantum Mechanics, the paranormal podcast for the believers, the doubters, and everybody in between. So as you can see, we did make it back.
We did. We survived Cannock Chase. We didn't think we were at some point. If you've not listened to that episode, go back. It was a really weird night, wasn't it, Ben?
It was very weird. More the humans than the non-humans, though.
Yeah, exactly. There was a couple of people on, especially on our Patreon, on patreon.com/TQM pod, who were saying after they listened to it, oh, really sorry that, you didn't see more. And it was like, no, it was a really good evening, but I don't think it could have been any more scary. There was one point we didn't talk about, actually, in the podcast, because it was right at the end and we'd finished recording and packed all the kit away. But we were sat in that lane, weren't we, where there was that UFO sighting.
Yeah, we'd just gone down to do the final story, basically.
Yeah, and
it was pitch black.
Pitch black, really small lane. It didn't go anywhere. It was a dead end, so it was just like by this woods, potholes everywhere. James from the Lawmen was doing a little piece for his podcast outside the car, and suddenly these lights came round the corner, and a car drove up the lane, and we realised pretty quickly it was a red Nissan that had been following us around all night, and we'd been trying to get away from all night, almost in a paranoid state, and it had followed us into there. We were all screaming, James, get back in the car, we're going, we gotta go.
I'm not really sure what they were hoping to achieve with 6 relatively middle-aged people, but yeah, probably something dirty.
Yeah, I'm not sure it would have been pleasant.
No.
It was a really good night. We had really good fun. If you've not listened to the episode, go check it out. Not just for the stories of paranormal. It was so good doing the stories in the location where they actually happened, but just as an exercise in a group of people in a car in a completely paranoid state. Almost mass hysteria took hold, didn't it, at a point?
It did. But it was good to contextualise all the stories we've seen, the locations, and I think we sort of postulated some theories about why people feel that it is so haunted, even if it isn't. I'm not saying it isn't, I'm just saying it is one spooky place.
Really spooky. And yes, thanks to James from the Lawmen, to Nicola and Trudy and Tim for coming with us, not because it just made it really good fun. It was quite nice to have the backup, I felt. I think me and you, on our own, it would have been a much scarier evening.
We definitely needed security.
Yeah, definitely.
Trudy's quite good at providing security.
Yeah, she is. I wouldn't mess with Trudy.
Onwards and, as they say, upwards to the next location. We got a couple in mind, not particularly well-known ones, but we're not turning into a ghost hunting podcast, but exploring the local lore. We've got a couple that we want to do, again, with James, so they're coming up.
I think that's the point for me. It's like actually doing some of these stories where they actually happened.
Yes.
Is much more, well, I mean, yeah, great. It'd be great to be there and have something weird happen, but that's good enough for me. And really exciting and really enjoyable to do. So, and also we've got to go and use the walkie-talkies the Patreons bought for us, which just stayed in a bag because we were so huddled together all night.
Well, I think that was probably for the best. I think if you turn up at a car park in pretty much what is the middle of nowhere, and there's already around about 8 cars and huddles of people, I think if you split up, you're just asking for trouble.
Yeah, I agree. Well, should we? We've got something completely different this week, Ben.
Yes, we should crack on because you know how some people are afraid of clowns. I'm scared of this.
Yes, I've slightly briefed Ben. Well, I haven't briefed him on the stories, but I've sent him some images to have a look at while we go through the podcast. And yeah, as usual, we'll stick those on our Patreon site. Patreon.com/TQM pod, so you can have a look at what we're talking about. So he's got a bit of an inkling of what's coming, but he doesn't know the stories.
I'm very much inkled.
He's inkled. Now, we've done a couple of episodes, Ben, on haunted objects. It's a bit of an obsession of ours on the Quantum Mechanics, is it not?
It is.
And I think we keep returning to this topic because Personally, I find something terrifying about an inanimate object being possessed with paranormal powers. It's just scary in itself. None so frightening than toy dolls.
And for me, it's because they've got a pseudo-human head.
Right, there's that human element. I think also the fact they are kids' playthings.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be a representation of fun and happiness. So for me, in some ways, it sullies that. Do you know what I mean? And that feels uncomfortable. Symbol of innocence, I guess, as well. That's what they're about. And let's face it, many of them do look really chilling and spooky just by their design.
Yeah, and also we've had the film memes, Chucky, always.
Yeah, and Annabel.
Annabel, yeah. God, I worked at Warner Brothers when they brought the film props in. Obviously, the film...
Oh, what, of Annabel?
Yeah, the film props are obviously not what the original looks like, but they are in the flesh, even though they're props. You have a visceral human reaction, and you have to... I couldn't go near them. I found it completely disconcerting.
Well, it kind of illustrates that what we were just talking about, doesn't it? And the Annabelle story is the great example of a haunted doll. I mean, I'm going to do a little summary of the Annabelle doll because we have covered it in more detail in a previous episode called Haunted Objects. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of summary because we've got to kind of mention it. So the basic story of the real version of Annabelle the doll is a mother picks up a doll at a thrift store or a market, I'm not sure which, gives it as a gift to her daughter, who's a student at university. Now, her daughter keeps the doll in the apartment she shares with a friend, and then all kinds of paranormal stuff just kicks off. The doll would seemingly move when the two flatmates were away during the day. Initially, I think it was, it's in a different position. Sometimes, though, it would turn up in completely different rooms, which would just freak you out, wouldn't it?
And that sort of... either this thing is walking around...
Yeah.
And you have that idea of coming face to face with it.
Yeah.
Or it's teleporting.
Yes.
Neither of which are great options.
No, neither of them are great. And it even increased. There was this bit of the story that was so weird where they'd come back to their apartment and there'd be handwritten notes left around. And, the only person or thing that was in the apartment was the Annabelle doll. So they surmised, and it was really weird messages, sometimes threatening. So that's really odd. And there is even a report that a male friend who was visiting the apartment was actually attacked by the doll when he was on his own with it in the room. So there was all stuff going on, right?
Well, now you're expecting it. I don't think you could live there without being completely on edge, could you?
As I said, we did go into more detail of the true story of Annabelle in the episode called Haunted Objects. So if you've not listened to that one, go back and check it out. I mean, the thing for me about the Annabelle doll, and you've said that you saw the ones that were used in the movie, and the ones in the movie were very, very different in terms of look and style to the actual doll itself. The one in the movie, I guess, would you describe it this way, Ben? Almost a slightly deranged porcelain Victorian style doll.
Yes, I mean, deliberately made to be horrible, yes.
Yes.
I mean, clearly it has to be for the film, but yes.
Yeah, the real one looks a bit more like a handmade raggedy cloth doll, didn't it?
Well, I think it is a Raggedy Ann doll, isn't it? I think that's recognisably the thing, yeah.
And I get why they changed it for the movie. But in many ways, I think the real doll, for me, was more scary because of its more innocent, childlike appearance. Don't know if you agree with that, although you've seen the real thing from the movie.
Oh, I totally do, yes.
Today we're going to talk about other haunted dolls. So I just wanted a little warning. If you're listening with younger ears around, bear that in mind. I don't want anyone to complain that their child is terrified of their Barbie doll after listening to our podcast. So we're putting that warning out there, right?
Yeah, good shout.
And I'm going to start in an unusual place. Ben, there can be nothing sinister or scary about Disney's movie Frozen, right?
I don't have children, so I've never seen it, but no. The only sinister thing is that blooming song.
Oh, just let it go. Well, there was something sinister and scary for one family from Texas who posted on Facebook their chilling experiences with an Elsa doll from the Disney movie Frozen. The doll was bought by Emily Madonia for her daughter Aurelia in 2013 when her daughter was 1 year old. So when you press the doll's necklace round its neck, it sings the hit song from the movie. Much to Ben's annoyance, it sings Let It Go in either English or Spanish. So far, so good, right, Ben? Apart from the fact you hate the song.
Yeah, but, you know, nothing wrong with that so far.
Yeah. Well, the family noticed after a couple of months, the doll started singing the song randomly without anyone pressing the necklace to set it off. In fact, it started to happen when the doll was actually switched off. Now, initially, as you would, the family regarded this as like some kind of annoying fault rather than anything supernatural. But after the doll seemed to be more glitchy, they decided it was time to throw it out. And this was when their problems really started, Ben.
Oh no, did it come back?
I think you're seeing where this is going.
Oh no, it did. Oh no.
Emily's husband Matt was given the job of throwing the doll out into the frozen wilderness. Well, it was Texas. He threw it into a bag full of garbage and put it in the trash can outside. A week later, the family went to get something out of a wooden storage box in their living room. And there, on top of a bunch of blankets, was Elsa the doll.
No.
Now, Emily's husband Matt insisted he'd put the doll in the garbage. Emily wrote on Facebook, "There is no way the kids would have taken it out of the garbage, but we asked them about it anyway, and they were completely confused." So at this point, she's going, just my kids' reaction tells me they are not the ones who've taken it out of the garbage, right?
Yeah.
And her husband obviously hadn't. She then goes on to say, after Matt and I argued about who was going to have to touch it and get rid of it, he finally got it into a garbage bag and then tied it tight and took it back out to the garbage outside underneath a bunch of other garbage. Can you guess what happened next, Ben?
It came back.
A few days later, the doll was back in their house for a second time.
No.
Emily said, "We were weirded out and tightly wrapped it in its own garbage bag and then put that garbage bag inside another garbage bag filled with other garbage and put it in the bottom of our garbage can underneath a bunch of other bags of garbage and wheeled it to the curb, and it was collected the next day." Now, the family then went away for a week-long holiday, completely forgot about the doll, until they returned home, and their daughter, Aurelia, came into the house and said, "Mum, I saw the Elsa doll again in the backyard." Part of their Facebook post, the family shared a photo of the Elsa doll leaning against a wall at the side of their house. It was back again. Now, I think,
come on, leaning against the side of the house.
if you have a look, there is. I've sent you a photo of that.
Oh, that's what that is.
Yeah.
No, that is... Because that is like casually like, hi.
Hi, I'm back.
It's even got his hand in the air.
Yeah, almost like asking for attention. It's almost, isn't it, in a pose?
That is definitely placed there.
Well, the family's story gained some traction on Facebook, including, as you might expect, Ben, they got offers from paranormal collectors and TV networks to buy the doll.
Yeah.
Emily says the doll and the tale are real and insists the story is not a hoax or a prank by her husband or the children. This is a really good point she makes. She said, "Either the doll is haunted or some crazy psychopath has dug the doll out of the garbage that was already taken away, broken into my house multiple times. She said she would rather believe it was haunted rather than the alternative." You would, wouldn't you?
I mean, yeah, I suppose so. It's that unknowing, like, what and why whatever it is in there.
Yeah, why is it doing it? Also, I should point out, Emily said she knows it's the same doll, as her daughter had coloured parts of the doll with permanent marker. So it wasn't a different doll or a replacement. Now, some people online suggested they should burn the doll, but Emily feared it might release some kind of evil spirit if she did that, almost like an attack on it.
But the thing is like that. If you think that, then somehow that evil spirit was flying around your house and got in there. Well, either that or it got in at the factory or somewhere between there and the factory. But
yeah,
I would be less worried about that.
Yeah. Emily says the doll, which was supposed to speak and sing in either English or Spanish, only sang in English when they first got it, no matter which setting they switched it to. After about 2 years, the doll started randomly switching between English and Spanish. Later, it would only communicate in Spanish. This happened no matter what buttons they pressed or whether the doll was actually switched on or off. Now, in the end, the family called a friend called Chris Hogan, and he decided to come to the family's rescue. He agreed to take the doll off their hands. He lived over 1,500 miles away, and to be honest, Ben, the family seemed more than happy to let it go.
It's a reusable pun, isn't it?
It really is. It's the last time I'm doing it, though.
So he kept it.
This is really weird and almost like a weird, scary scene out of Toy Story. Emily ended up mailing the doll to her friend, but the doll managed one more spooky act. As Emily put the doll in the box to mail it to her friend, the doll began laughing. Emily said it lasted for about 30 seconds and that the doll had never done that before.
Nope. What's that? What do the kids say now? I'm noping right out of there. No.
Well, the doll's new owner is not a believer in the paranormal and explained that he only agreed to take the doll because he is a skeptic that doesn't believe in ghosts or magic. He said, I just offered to take the doll because it makes the story funny that she mailed the doll 1,500 miles away to get rid of it. I love this bit. Chris has duct taped the doll to the front of his Jeep to make sure it stays put.
That seems fair. That seems fair.
So Emily, the mum of the family, reflected on their experience with the spooky Elsa toy, saying, in the end, I'm just a mum and a violinist and a wife and a normal person who doesn't want to be forever known as the haunted doll lady. I am fascinated by the unknown, though, and this whole experience has been pretty entertaining. But I'm extremely happy the doll is not here anymore, and I hope to God it stays that way.
Yeah, I would be too. I wonder if Disney had an official view on this.
Yeah, I was wondering that. And actually, as I was reading the story, it reminded me so much of elements from Toy Story. You know, these dolls that when they're not being observed, you know, you can imagine it as a scene from Toy Story. The doll getting out of the trash, going back to the house. You know, and that moment where she said she put it in the box and he started laughing. I don't know if you've seen Toy Story, but there's a bit where the evil kid next door, and he picks up Woody, and then Woody suddenly starts rotating his head, going, play nice. You know what I mean? It reminded me of that.
Yeah.
But a great story. And, it doesn't feel like the family, certainly they're denying that they've made it up for clicks. It does seem to have happened. And I've seen photos, actually, of the Elsa doll kind of taped to the front of the guy's Jeep, which again is very Toy Story. I think in one of the Toy Stories, one of the evil characters is attached to a garbage truck at the front. So, yeah, there's lots of Toy Story parallels, maybe.
You know how there's alternative universes for movies? Like, I like the idea that you've heard, I think we've discussed it, the theory that the Jetsons and the Flintstones are in the same timeline. And it's post-apocalyptic war.
Yes.
I wonder whether there's like actually because they obviously they never go into it, but the sentience of the dolls in Toy Story is just spirits.
Yeah.
That's an interesting idea because it's actually, I hadn't thought about it until now, but the consciousness element is quite philosophical and left for us to determine as viewers. But actually, that's such a rich vein to tug on. I think they might actually be spirits.
I'm feeling a thesis coming up.
Yeah, there is a bit, isn't there?
There really is, yeah.
There's probably... I haven't looked. I'm going to look. I bet there's some fan fiction.
There's one about Greece, isn't there?
Oh, yeah, what is that? Yes.
The Olivia Newton-John character, because she meets him on a beach at the start, doesn't she? So the theory is she died on the beach, and this is her dream.
Oh.
And the final scene in the movie, I think it's late enough to get away with spoilers, isn't it? The final scene in the movie is her and him in the car, and it flies off into the clouds, and that's been interpreted as that's her journey to heaven, finally accepted that she's dead and going into the light.
Oh. That's interesting.
Maybe you need to write your thesis on how Toy Story toys, they've been possessed by spirits.
Possessed bedevilments.
Yeah.
You know Ghosts, and I think you have that in America as well.
Oh, the comedy
now.
series.
Yeah, I can imagine them all deciding to take a character as a toy.
Yes. Oh, that'd be a good episode, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would.
Like
it's almost like we should be... Honestly, we've come up with so many film franchises for the quantum mechanics.
I know. And we benefited from none of them.
No.
From a modern day doll from a famous movie, should we have a look at a haunted doll that is over 100 years old?
Yeah.
This doll has such paranormal status, it now lives in its own temple in Hokkaido in Japan. The doll is called Akiku, and it was purchased by a 17-year-old boy named Ekishi Suzuki in 1918. So this boy was visiting a marine exhibition in Sapporo in 1918, and he bought the doll as a gift for his 2-year-old sister called Akiku. When it was first purchased, it had traditional Japanese dress, had a kind of short bob-style haircut, which apparently is typical of the style of Japanese dolls from that time. You know, traditional dress, short bob haircut. Now, Akiku, the boy's sister, loved the doll and it was her loyal companion. This is really sad. Until sadly, Akiku died suddenly from a type of flu virus, aged just 3 years old. Now, the family were obviously devastated by the death of their child, and they decided to place the doll on their household altar where they prayed to the memory of their daughter, Akiku. This is where it gets weird. Within a few weeks, the family noticed something very strange. The doll's hair began to grow.
That's so subtle, though, isn't it? That's such a subtle haunting, yeah.
Yeah, it's just started to grow. The family believed the growing hair was a sign that the living spirit of their daughter had somehow entered the doll. Now, they kept the doll at their home for nearly 20 years, but in 1938, when they moved to, Iwamizawa in Hokkaido, they gave the doll to the Menenji Temple, where the doll remains today. Now, the temple named the doll Akiku after the young girl who originally owned it. Now, the strange phenomena of the doll's hair growing did not stop when she was donated to the temple. In fact, this location move seemed to increase the paranormal activity. In a short space of time, it's claimed the hair grew 10 inches. So that's nearly 25 centimetres.
That's quite a lot.
And this hair basically reached all the way down to the doll's knees. Now, if you remember, the doll had a short bob haircut when it was bought, and now the hair is down to his knees. If you look at the photo I sent you, Ben, you can see what it looks like now in the temple.
Oh, my Lord. Yes, I see it. That's so long.
Yeah, really long, right?
I bet, well, you may or may not know, but has anyone done a DNA test?
I'm going to come on to Tess in a second.
She looks like a teacher I used to have.
Really? Did her hair grow, kind of?
Her hair, she used to wear it exactly like that. Mrs. Everson, when I was 10, she looks almost exactly like her.
Yeah.
Hello to you, Mrs. Everson, if you're listening.
She didn't teach Japanese, did she?
No, but she was Japanese and married
really?
an English man, yes.
Wow, okay, that's weird.
Nicest teacher I had, I think.
Oh, well, respect to her. The priest of the temple claims he had a dream in which a kiku, and it's not really clear whether it's the child or the doll that was named after the child. But in this dream, a kiku came to him and asked him to keep her hair trimmed. Now, we talked about, is there any proof to go with this? Now, this is where the internet gets divided, and this is where the research also gets divided. There are claims that the temple has refused requests to have the hair and the doll tested. However, I read other research that said that the temple did allow tests, and it was determined that the doll was growing real human hair.
Who determined that, though?
I know which one I'd probably lean to, but both reports are out there.
Okay, that's interesting. That is interesting. It would be very hard to determine if it was growing it or if someone was placing it there. But
yeah.
no, I like the fact there isn't a definite either way.
And in a move that almost sounds like gradually this doll is becoming human, there are also claims from some of the visitors who've seen the doll at the temple saying that its mouth is slowly opening to reveal real human teeth, which would be weird to see. Like you said, there's something very Japanese about that story in the fact that it's not running around haunting you or scaring the life out of you. It's just the hair is growing and possibly this teeth thing. But that's it, apart from the kind of dream. But there's something kind of, I don't know, the simplicity of it is quite spooky in itself, I think.
Oh, very much so. Yeah.
There was a bit of me that thought, if the family had had the doll and had it for all that time, would you give it to a temple just because you moved house? I get you wouldn't want to take the whole altar with you, but you'd just take the doll, wouldn't you? Because you wouldn't want to let that go. It's your child. But I guess maybe they felt it might have been a healing process to do it. I don't know.
There's a whole load of sceptical thoughts going through my head around attention, money, the sale of rights, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe you just get freaked out and you want to give it somewhere. I mean,
or part of the grieving process, almost the final stage of, saying goodbye in a way, maybe.
Yeah.
But also,
I think that's right.
You're happy that they're in a temple setting, so it doesn't feel like you're just throwing the thing away. Do you know what I mean? So it could be.
That's true. That is true. Yes. I hadn't thought about that. Yes. Yeah, there's a lot of emotions going on there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I get it.
Well, at the start of the episode, Ben, I put a little age-appropriate warning saying I don't want to be blamed for making kids think their Barbie doll was haunted. Now, that was not only just a warning, but also a teaser, as the next story does indeed feature a haunted Barbie doll.
Right. Should I check my pictures again?
Yeah, have a look. And like the previous story we did, this doll also has its own temple.
Oh, I think, yes, okay. I understand what I'm looking at, yes. This is the one where there is that a gold sheep?
Yeah, there's something in front of it. People come and put other things around the temple.
Wow, she's got some quite fancy outfit there.
Yes, very kind of Princess Barbie.
Mm.
Well, the shrine, complete with Haunted Barbie, is located in Pulau Ubin Island, which is a boomerang-shaped island in Singapore. The story starts in World War I, when Singapore was a British colony. As the war ramped up, the British decided that German-born residents in Singapore could be a threat, or even perhaps spies, and they decided to round them up and detain them, intern them, I guess, in camps. This included 2 German families who lived on the small island of Pulau Ubin. The story goes that as the British forces approached one family, the younger daughter of the family panicked and fled into nearby woods. Days later, plantation workers found the dead body of the child, and it was assumed she slipped and fell into the quarry where she was found. Now, the workers buried the body in a kind of temporary grave in sand, laid flowers. She remained in the quarry, and people would regularly come to pray at this makeshift grave and light incense for the girl. After a period of time, Chinese workers recovered the remains and gave the child a proper burial on a hill above the quarry. They created a shrine, top of the burial site, and placed an urn that had a lock of the child's hair in it. So, Ben, at this point in the story, you might be wondering what I was. Why did the family not come back and claim the remains of their child?
I was waiting for there was this thing, yeah.
The legend has conflicting reports on this. Some say that the family fled back to Germany and were too scared to return. In another version, which kind of makes sense, the family returned after the war, but couldn't find where their child was buried. I think because there's an altar, I find that one slightly weird to believe, especially if they lived on the island.
Yeah, I find, and the clue is it's an island, but yes.
Yeah. Well, the makeshift shrine remained until 1974, when the quarry company built a more permanent shrine. It is a small yellow temple that is still standing today. The remains obviously were underneath the shrine, and I guess as a kind of tribute, a new urn was placed in the shrine. Now, many people come to visit the shrine of the girl, and it's rumoured that visiting it will bring you good luck. So there are tales of people winning the lottery after praying at the shrine. Whether that's true or not, who knows, but it's meant that gamblers from all over Singapore and Malaysia come to the location hoping that the German girl will bring them good luck. Which is a weird twist, I think. But yes, you've got all these hardened gamblers coming from kind of all over the region going, I'm going to go to that shrine because I'm going to win if I go there.
Yeah, that is disrespectful-ish, but yes.
So, Ben, you're probably wondering what any of this has to do with dolls, and particularly Barbie, right?
Well, I've seen the picture, so I was making my own connections, but...
Because the girl wasn't carrying a doll when she ran away.
Okay.
And she wasn't found with one.
Okay.
So this is where the story gets even weirder. And it starts with an islander from Pulau Ubin who moved to Australia in 2007. He claims, while living in Australia, he started to have strange dreams. For 3 nights in a row, he was visited by the ghost of a young German girl. In the dream, he was told to visit a specific store in Australia and purchase a specific Barbie doll. In the dream, the girl told him to buy the doll and take it to the shrine on Pulau Ubin Island. So when this man woke up, he managed to find the store in his dream and the Barbie doll he dreamt about a few nights before. He did return to Pulau Island with the Barbie doll that he now believed was haunted, and he placed it in the shrine where it remains to this day.
I see, okay.
So this is one of them that we need to look at from maybe a more sceptical perspective. And from my research, the person who's investigated this story the most is someone called Dr. William L. Gibson, and he's heavily looked into all aspects of the legend. Firstly, I guess because the shrine is said to be built on top of the remains, there are no human remains to actually examine, I guess, without disturbing the site. So nobody's done that. Now, it's unclear what happened to the hair I mentioned. There was a lock of hair that was at the original site that was in the original urn. That's not there anymore. That's gone. So there's a theory that it was lost when the shrine was moved from the, quarry onto the hillsides, but it's not there anymore, whichever way you look at it. The legend itself seems to trace back to one man, Chiai Yeng Keng, who is a local man living on Pulau Island. And according to Dr. Gibson, his story has changed many times over the years. Originally, Chai Yeng Keng claimed the family and the girl were Dutch, not German. Now, perhaps because the Netherlands were neutral during World War I, so why would the British be rounding them up and interning them, right? The nationality seemed to change to German. Now, there is evidence of a German family running a plantation on the island, but that was later than World War I. In fact, according to records, the only plantation on the island at the time was run by Anglo-Irish people, and there were no, well, at least Western women recorded as living on the island at that time.
Okay.
Now, the first recorded mention of the grave and the shrine was in a Malayan newspaper in 1985, and their telling of the story was very much different. In their version, a princess from Java fled to the island and died there. Her spirit, known as the Ghost Princess, was said to seduce quarry workers and lure them to their death. That article and story was accompanied by a picture of the shrine, complete with the Barbie, which visually makes sense with the photo, right?
Yeah, it definitely does.
Because we said earlier, it looks a bit like a princess. So yeah, there's a lot of confusion out there regarding this story. Either a young German girl died and a shrine was built, a local man had a dream in Australia, and at the request of the ghost of the girl, bought a haunted Barbie and took it to the shrine.
It all makes sense when you condense it like that.
Or it is a shrine to and haunted by the ghost of a princess from Java, and it just happens to have a Barbie doll in it as well.
And that sort of, to me, makes more sense because in the past somebody would have created an idol, perhaps. I'm not an expert on the culture, but I could see how a Barbie makes an excellent stand-in idol.
Yes, and princess in a way. It's
and
kind
princess,
of synonymous
exactly.
with it, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's either one of those two, or it's a good folklore tale made up by one man on the island. They're your options.
So much recently. You know how we go in waves on this podcast?
Yeah.
And so much of what we've been covering recently goes back to one man maybe making stuff up.
Yeah. What we do know is that someone built the shrine for some reason, and it does contain a Barbie doll in a glass case, and people do go there thinking it will bring them good luck.
Well, fair enough to them.
Yeah. Ben, I wasn't going to include this next story because outside of Annabel, it is probably the most famous haunted doll story in the world. And like Annabel, the legend spawned its own movie. But then I realised we haven't covered it on the Quantum Mechanics before, as far as I remember. And given this is an episode on haunted dolls, it seemed a bit amiss to leave this story out. I am, of course, talking about Robert the Doll.
Robert the Doll. This is my worst nightmare, is Robert the Doll.
I've used multiple sources for this story, as some do vary. But as a good introduction to Robert the Doll, I'm starting with an article by Andy Wright from October 2021. In his intro, he writes, "Here is something that most people would agree is true about Robert the Doll. He's terrifying." Think we would agree with that, wouldn't we?
Oh, I certainly would.
Ostensibly a little boy in a sailor suit, his careworn face is only vaguely human. His nub of a nose looks like a pair of pinholes. He is covered in brown nicks like scars. His eyes are beady and black. He wears a malevolent smirk. Clasped in his lap, he's holding his own toy, a dog with garish popping eyes and a too big tongue lolling crazily out of its mouth. Here are some things that people also agree is true about Robert. That he's haunted, that he has caused car accidents, broken bones, job losses, divorce, and a cornucopia of other misfortunes. Robert is now 117 years old. I think when this article was published, he's probably 119 now. He lives at the Fort East Martello Museum in Key West, Florida, in a new display case which was recently donated by someone, quote unquote, who is a fan of Robert's. Says Corley Convertito, who's the curator of the museum. But the comfortable new digs, complete with humidity control and UV filtered glass to preserve the artefact, do not seem to have reformed Robert. The museum still gets regular reports of evil attributed to the doll. Before Robert came to the museum in 1994, he was the property of Robert Eugene Otto, an eccentric artist and member of a prominent Key West family. Robert was a childhood birthday gift from Otto's grandfather, who bought the doll during a trip to Germany. Otto's relationship with the doll continued into adulthood. So Ben, let's delve deeper into the story.
Okay, time for me to open my photos again.
Yep. which really starts in the early 1900s. The young boy, Eugene Robert Otto, or referred to as Otto from now on to avoid confusion. Otto was given the bizarre doll, which he named Robert, and then developed a strange, certainly intense relationship with this weird-looking doll.
Did it always, and I haven't researched this, did it always look this odd?
It did always look this odd. I think the sailor suit came later.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure if that's something that Otto gave the toy, but it didn't come in the sailor suit. I'll come into a bit of a history of the doll because it is quite interesting.
Okay.
The earliest recorded weird event happened when Otto was just 10 years old. He woke in the middle of the night to find Robert the doll sitting on the end of his bed staring at him.
Now, my dog does that sometimes, and that's freaky enough because I'm thinking, is he trying to tell me there's a murderer in the house? But no, he's just trying to tell me that he wants a wee usually. But
Yeah.
oh, the doll, come on.
Yeah. Well, Otto's mother was awakened by screams and sound of furniture being turned over in Otto's room. Otto was crying for help, and when his mother got to the bedroom, the door was locked. She forced the door open and found Otto curled up, shaking on his bed, with Robert the doll sitting lifeless at the foot of his bed. And the room was trashed.
The room was trashed?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Now, this was just the start of strange paranormal activity. The family, this is weird as well. The family would often hear Otto talking to the doll in his room. Otto would ask a question, and the reply would come, seemingly from Robert the doll, in a totally different voice.
You see, I have heard that before about this legend, but I always wondered whether it wasn't a psycho thing, when he's talking to his mum. And because you do, I see small children, like with various toys, very specifically, I know a child who does it with Paw Patrol toys. It's not creepy, obviously. Yeah. They just give them voices. I mean, that is a bit weird because I believe, it sounds more realistic as a two-way conversation with Otto and Robert than you would expect from a child, I believe.
It reminds me a bit of the Enfield Poltergeist as well, with the girl in that. The voices, and there was that,
Yes.
It's either possession or some way she's good at projecting and doing voices.
Yes.
The family claimed that they saw the doll speak and observed its expressions changing.
No. Again, I'm noping my way out of there. If you saw that, nip it in the bud. Take its head off.
Well, other reports described the family seeing the doll running up and down the stairs.
Come on, you don't just go... How did that conversation go? Do you see that? What? The doll running up and down the stairs. Did it? Yeah. Oh, anyway, Newsnight's on.
People outside of the house reported the doll staring at them out of the bedroom window.
Oh, God.
Otto's mother became more spooked by the doll, finally agreeing with her son to lock it in the attic. Robert the doll didn't seem to appreciate his new attic home. Visitors to the house reported hearing footsteps walking back and forth in the attic, and demonic laughing was also heard coming from the attic. Then came reports from a group of school children that the doll was in Otto's bedroom, looking out of the window, moving and gesturing to them.
Gesturing?
Yeah, waving its arms, all kinds of stuff.
I didn't know about this part of the story. God.
When Otto heard about this, he went to investigate. Because how could the doll that was locked in the attic being at his bedroom window, right?
Right.
So when Otto opened the bedroom door, he was shocked to see Robert the doll not in the attic, but he was sitting in a rocking chair by the window, just as the school kids described.
A rocking chair. It's always a...
It's trope central, isn't it?
Isn't it? What is it with spirits and flipping rocking chairs? Yes. No. Kill it with fire.
Well, the doll was locked back up in the attic on multiple occasions, but Otto would then find Robert back in his bedroom. Now, the doll remained in the house all through Otto's life. Otto died in 1974. Oh, God, this again, we're getting into horror movie trope here. New owners bought the house. The family's 10-year-old daughter was excited to find Robert the doll in the attic.
Don't be excited. Definitely don't be excited.
But the daughter soon started to tell her family that the doll was alive and wanted to hurt her. One night, she woke up screaming, and when her parents got to the room, the girl claimed the doll had been moving around her room on its own. The new family also reported that Robert would move around the house and that the doll's expressions would change whenever the family discussed the doll's previous owner, Otto. In the end, the family donated the doll to the Florida Museum, where it remains today. Now, this new home must have been a welcome change for Robert the doll, don't you think? After years being locked up in the attic.
He bought it on himself.
I'm not saying he didn't, but he's become one of the star attractions of the museum. Visitors flock to get close to this haunted doll. He's appeared on TV shows, inspired a movie. He's even got his own social media presence. You can receive a tweet from Robert, I think, or an X or whatever.
A cursed tweet.
Yeah. Apart from the visitor numbers, the museum makes a few pennies selling replica dolls, books and T-shirts. You can also, I think, if you pay a little extra, opt to spend the night on your own in the same room as Robert if you dare.
I've seen some YouTubers doing this.
Did any weird stuff happen for them, or was it just them freaking themselves out?
I've only ever seen people freaking themselves out. I think when anything weird happens, you know what YouTube is like with paranormal hunters?
Yeah.
It's a cesspool of, he made it up, now he makes it up, now he's real, now he's real. It's like absolute playground mentality, so I haven't watched much of it, but
Yeah.
the sensible person that I watched with it, they were like, it's just a bit freaky. But I think I'm right in saying that you have to ask Robert's permission, don't you?
Yes, there is something about that, and again, there are parallels with Annabel the doll.
Yeah.
Because the curator of the museum, Cory Covertito, says he gets probably 1 or 3 letters a day, so fan letters. Many of these letters are apologies from people who visited the museum and then suffered some kind of misfortune after bad-mouthing the doll, or I guess not asking the permission, maybe. So I think earlier, I said reports of car crashes and all kinds of stuff. That's a bit like Annabel the doll, people who've gone up and tried to hit the box she's in, or, bad mouth that doll. There's stories of people having car crashes and all kinds of stuff afterwards. It's the same with Robert the doll. So people send letters going, please, I'm sorry, which is weird.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
They also get letters from people saying, Robert, will you please hex or put a curse on one of my, on so-and-so for me.
Never do that, because
Nope.
karma, never do that.
And it's not just letters, Ben. Some people send gifts, especially candy, apparently. That's a real popular one. The curator said that on one occasion, Robert received a huge box containing 8 bags of peppermints. Other people have sent money, even the occasional joint.
That's novel.
Now, the museum staff throw the sweets away as they wouldn't risk eating them, but it didn't say in the article what they did with the money or the joints. So who knows?
I suppose the sensible thing is to get on the right side of him, and therefore I can understand why you would do that. Yeah.
Yeah, you're just covering your bases, aren't you?
You're covering your bases. Yeah.
Well, the curator was asked if she thought that Robert was haunted. She said, I don't know, I really don't. I've never had a bad experience with him. I've never felt uncomfortable. It's always been a very basic relationship, and I have a job to do, and I go and do it. And whether there's something to it or not, he just allows me to get on with my job. Now, many believe the story's a myth or urban legend put about by the museum. Whether that is true or not, it is intriguing how and why the story has got so much attraction, right?
It really has.
It's a great backstory, you can't argue that. And as we've seen, it's full of kind of horror movie tropes. But I think there is something about the look of that doll that is fascinating. And I'd tell you its origins because it's believed. I think one of the reasons is it's so unique looking, isn't it? I've never seen anything else.
I mean, it looks horrible.
Well, it's believed it was originally not a toy.
Oh.
It was believed it was created as a mannequin for a shop window display.
Well, that makes a lot more sense.
And when you look at it, it does make a lot more sense. I mean, like I said, it didn't have the sailor outfit at that point. I don't know if it had the dog or not, but yes, I think it was a window display, I guess maybe for a toy shop or something like that. So I think it's that strange look, its uniqueness. I also wondered if it was the fact that it is a male doll that also adds to that vibe. Because a lot of these, the stereotypical haunted doll is not a male doll, is it? It's either a princess doll or something like the trope of Annabel in the movies or whatever, or a Barbie or whatever. You don't see many, male dolls that in haunted stories. I've not.
No. I mean, I suppose that when I say Chucky at the beginning, Chucky is very much. I suspect that's probably why the filmmakers chose it, because it's different to anything else. But you're absolutely right. I'm sure there are some, and our listeners probably know them. But like a haunted action man is not. It's not a thing that I've really I've never come across.
I've also got another kind of skeptical thought about this story when I was reading it, and I think you may have hinted a little bit at this as well. In a lot of the accounts I read, Otto the boy who first owned Robert the doll would blame it for anything bad that happened. So there's that famous quote, "It was Robert, not me."
I think a lot of children do that with imaginary friends.
Yes.
I certainly did that with I've said
with your yak.
With yak. But I also, like a gentleman after a curry, like Bertie sometimes takes the rap.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And I think that's just
because you can't get away with the yak anymore, can you?
I think Rachel might think I was demented, but but yes, but I think that's that is a common thing, and I have seen children do it. But it's if you're an only child, as I was before. Unfortunately, my sister came along. That's a joke, by the way. Because I think Robert was an only child when he had this doll. If you do something wrong, you blame it on something else. Your imaginary friend, your doll, whatever. It's normal part of childhood.
Yes, but I wondered if it even went a little bit deeper than that. That because I thought, if you get away with blaming Robert the doll and it works, and you're also getting attention from your family, because maybe this kid didn't get attention, Otto, you could see how you might go, I'm going to use this doll to create all kinds of mischief, because...
Absolutely.
So I thought about the school kids seeing the doll waving at the window. I almost had this vision of Otto below the window line on his hands and knees, kind of moving the arms of the doll and freaking people out. And certainly it seems like, if it is true, that Otto had some kind of relationship with this doll right the way up until his death. You know what I mean? So it went into adulthood as well. And like when you said, with him talking and then and the doll replying in a different voice, all that type of stuff. I'm wondering if it's almost like an imaginary friend but gone too far.
Yeah, I think that makes quite a lot of sense. And
especially if your family start believing in the paranormal element of it. And similar things have been said about the Enfield poltergeist as well, that in some ways the girls were like enjoying the attention and the, what they were getting out of it. I don't blame them for that. It's not a judgment, but it's an interesting theory.
Well, I heard a story, and it may be from... you know how much I love the Jim Harold podcast. It might have been from there, but I remember the story, which was somebody gives their quite religious co-worker the novel version of The Fog.
Okay.
And they say this is an evil book, so it goes against their beliefs. and they tell their co-worker who gave them the book in the first instance that they threw it in the sea. So to play a joke on them, the co-worker buys another second-hand copy, soaks it in seawater and puts it back in their desk.
Right.
And they freak out. And of course they would. And the sort of the denouement to the story was, and we never told her. So
that's a bit cruel.
Well, yeah, I know. but it is quite funny. But I can see that sort of thing happening. Apologies, I should know this, but apart from the museum, I don't think there's been a film, has there?
There's been a film. I don't think it's as based. I don't think it's closely based as maybe the Annabel film. It has inspired a movie version, but I think it's more the doll itself. I think, apart from using that type of doll as a basis for the movie, I think that's where the legend and the movie part ways. As far as I know, I've never seen it, so I don't know.
So chances are then the chief protagonists, so the family and the child, they probably didn't make any money if it was inspired by.
No, and they would definitely, I think they died well before then. Yeah.
Yeah, because we always talk about following the money. The
movie is called Robert. It's a chilling story based on the real-life events of a family experiencing terrifying supernatural occurrences when their son acquires a vintage doll called Robert. So that's in IMDb. 2015, British horror movie, written and directed by Andrew Jones.
Okay.
So it does sound like it's maybe is quite closely linked. How far, I don't know. Like I said, I've not seen it, so I don't know. But yes, I like that. There's something about Otto's relationship with the doll. This is a bit of a throwback movie, but it is scary and it's good. Not a horror movie, more a psychological movie. Have you ever seen the Anthony Hopkins film, Magic?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, that's a great film.
It's a great film where he's a ventriloquist, and his relationship with his ventriloquist dummy just becomes more and more disturbed and psychotic, and the ventriloquist dummy just becomes this extension of him, and it made me think a bit. I wonder if it's true, whether that is also the case with Otto and Robert.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I suppose we don't know enough about Otto Robert. That is. There are a number of different conditions, mental conditions, that might cause an attachment to an object like that, and because it wouldn't have been recognised back then, there are so many explanations for it. But I do know, as much as I say, I'm not sure I believe in it. Would I go in and take a photograph without his permission? Absolutely not.
Would you throw an insult its way?
No, absolutely not. Because why would you bring that upon yourself?
Just on that front, if you're listening, Robert the doll, we love you.
Absolutely. And we're very glad to do this podcast about you.
Yeah.
I can't afford to lose any more money, so let's not go down that route, please.
No. Well, that was my journey through dolls. I started off the episode thinking about this episode, Ben. I wanted to do haunted toys. I didn't want it to just be about dolls, but I really struggled to find stories about haunted toys that were A, any good, or B, not just creepypasta. But I also had, you've had your rows with ChatGPT when you've been asking it for research on stories.
Oh, yeah, we've had big old rows.
And it's always been all right with me. It started with me now. Because I'd done a lot on dolls, and I thought, I just want to find one story about, I don't know, a haunted car or toy car or something like that. So I asked it, I said, have you got any stories of haunted toys? And then it gave me a load of dolls ones. And I said, have you got any stories about haunted toys that are not dolls? And it gave me this quite good story about a haunted car, toy car. I thought, that's really good. And then I just thought, I'll research it. I want to double check it. So I asked ChatGPT what the source was. I'd asked for a real life story, I should make it clear. And it said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood what you wanted. I made the story up from other fictional stories out there."
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, hold on a second. I asked you for a real life, legitimate story of a haunted toy, and it gave me quite a detailed story and said, "Oh no, I just made it up." What's that about?
That happened to me with so in my non-fictional real world working, I was working on the works of how many times did I say work? An actual renowned author, and she's got such a big canon. I asked for a very specific quote about a very specific thing for a picture I was writing, and I turned to the chat, and it gave me something, and it was absolutely bang on what I wanted, and I said, "Did you make that up?" And it said, "No, it's from this book." And so I thought, okay, and I checked the characters were from that book, but I didn't have time to check it. So I turned it in, and about 3 days later, an expert in that writer's work said, "What's this quote you've got? Where does that come from?" And obviously, I admitted where it come from. She said, "It's not real."
Wow.
And it had made it up and then pretended that it was real.
It was real. That's what it did to me.
Yeah. I think we're safe. Well, in the creative industries, we're safe from Chat GPT. Because you remember I also asked it about that author that I covered. I can't remember what it was.
Yes. Yeah. It was something on the podcast, wasn't it?
Yeah. And I asked
it was another quote, wasn't it?
Yes. It was about whether he'd had any contact with, I think I was asking about fairies or gnomes. And they said, "Oh, yeah, he wrote a whole book about it." I went, "Really?" And he went, "Yep." And then I looked it up, and I bought the book. I bought the transcript, as it were, on PDF. No, not a single mention. It was completely made up. And then the other one was when I did the Spiders from Mars, I was trying to get more information on it beyond the published eyewitness accounts. And it said it never happened. It was just a fog bank. And I said, "No, it wasn't." And it said, "Well, the paranormal isn't real, so it was a fog bank." So it's I've given up on it as a helper. I used it for about 2 months. I was using it as a helper for sources on the show, and I've gone back to more old school in researching book recommendations and then literally buying the book and reading them because it's the only way to do it.
Yeah. Well, I think asking it what the source is helpful, but, it sounds like it might kind of also mislead you on that.
Oh, it tells you a real source, but then it without you checking that source, you could be lying. And it taught me a real lesson because I was so embarrassed about that incident that happened in my non-TQM life that I just was like, I can't. Because you put your reputation on the line. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's really key for, especially, in this podcast, every time I reference somebody, it is, every time we do it, it's true. If there's a made up story, we say it might be made up. And I can't rely on that to help me with the research, which is annoying because it sometimes it comes through trumps, but you end up just doing more work because you have to manually back check all its work
and check it all.
Yeah.
I'm still keen to find stories that are not haunted dolls but are haunted toys, so if anyone out there can point me in the right direction of something that's not made up or creepypasta, I'd love to come back to it. But dolls are a hotbed, and on another episode we did, we got into the eBay market of quote unquote haunted dolls and all that stuff. So there's something about dolls.
There really is. And I'm sort of, when I grew up, I was 8 years older than my sister, and I was quite glad she never had dolls. She had little Sylvanian family. She had a lot of stuffed, so that the beautiful little animals and stuffed dogs and cats, not real ones obviously, and they're never creepy. You don't walk into a semi-haunted house and you see a pound puppy from the 80s and go, "Oh, that's scary." But you would see a doll sitting there and go, that is
freaky, or a clown or whatever. Yeah,
a clown. Yeah. By the way, I read McDonald's quietly rolling back on Ronald McDonald, which I think is a bit of a shame. I like Ronald McDonald.
But if you've got a phobia, he's not doing much for them anymore, is he? Really?
No. I always wanted a McDonald's party where, well, when I was about 8, he would come along. I mean, I know it wasn't him.
Yeah.
But he would come along, and I thought it'd be quite cool to have Ronald there, and Hamburglar.
Yeah.
And Mayor McCheese.
It's reminding me, there was a really good story in Pop Bitch the other week about, Disney do those cruises. And families go on the cruise, and there's characters and stuff like that. I think Pop Bitch, or they've been reported, there's an emergency procedure that if they have to evacuate the ship, anyone in character must remain in character.
That can't be true.
Because I guess they will have drills, fire drills, other type stuff, or it's more likely to be a false alarm than a normal abandoned ship. And you just can't have a character revealing it's just someone in a costume with a head mask on. So if it did kick off, you could see a shot where people were getting into a lifeboat sitting next to somebody in full Mickey Mouse costume.
We've reached the end of civilization. So
and we've reached the end of this week's podcast as well.
Yes. Well, it is happily coincidental that the two have happened at the same time.
Yes.
Well, as we have got to the end of civilization, maybe there's a chance of regrowing it by joining us at patreon.com/TQMpod.
Yeah.
As you can see, we're starting to ramp up the amount of additional content, and that is all because of the funds you've been able to give us, which enable us to do those things, because they're all very expensive, as you can imagine. Going away with even a modest group of people and doing a 15-minute podcast in Cannock Chase is hundreds of pounds when you factor everything in. So, with not that we're eating lobster, but it's just that, like, the technical stuff is quite
even the fuel.
Even the fuel. But
yes, thank you for that, and I think it's enabling us to do more of those things, which I certainly enjoy doing them. I hope you enjoy listening to them.
Absolutely. Well, I have been delving further into cryptids for next week, and
we've got a cryptid coming. Great.
We have, and it's on the back of the werewolf hunt. And it's a source that I've tapped up before, and I found some very, very interesting coverage of Nessie and Bigfoot, which I'd never read before. So I'm halfway through it. So I hope I'm not lying to you, and I get halfway through, I get more than halfway through, and go, oh my gosh, it won't work. But I'm pretty sure I've put a couple of days' work into it. It looks pretty good. So I'm going to pick up over the weekend, and I'm hoping that's what I'll bring you when we record next week. Yes.
Excellent. I look forward to that. Well, look, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week on the Quantum Mechanics.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Are you the quantum mechanics?